I'd also like to introduce you to our newest appointed City Clerk, Todd Strimmer. He is in attendance. You see his face right there waving. We have so far Commissioner Apuda is on, Commissioner Singh, Commissioner Barraza. I believe Commissioner Parks is in attendance. Okay, perfect. And let's see. Commissioner Cummings will not be in attendance. I am looking for Commissioner Vang and Commissioner Miller and Dolan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice to meet you, Todd.
Thank you.
You know, Commissioner, or Chair McCoy, we do have 5 in attendance right now, and I believe that is enough for a quorum if you want to go ahead and get started.
Thank you. Good evening, Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission. I now call this meeting into order. Would the secretary please call roll call?
Certainly. Chair McCoy,
Present.
Vice Chair Dolan, Commissioner Vang, Commissioner Apuda, Commissioner Miller.
Present, you got it right.
Thank you.
Oputa.
Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Cummings, Commissioner Singh,
Present.
Commissioner Barraza.
You're on mute.
Commissioner Barraza, present.
And Commissioner Parks.
Present.
Thank you. We will now begin the Pledge of Allegiance. Will everyone please stand? And please come off mute if you can. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
Thank you. We will start with the approval of the agenda. City Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are a few announcements, and the first is that, of course, we have Spanish, Hmong, and Punjabi translators available. Commissioner Cummings will not be in attendance today. The minutes for November 1st, 2021 will be on the December 6th, 2021 agenda. And that is it for any kind of changes or announcements.
Okay, are there any other proposed changes to the agenda? No. City Clerk?
Does not appear to be.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as is?
I think we have a few members on mute.
Is there a
So
motion?
moved. This
Thank
is
you.
Commissioner Oputa.
Thank you, Dr. Apuda. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Commissioner Parks.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. City Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote.
Commissioner Dolan, Commissioner Vang, sorry, Commissioner Apuda,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Cummings, Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza,
Yes.
and Commissioner Parks.
Yes.
And Chair also approves.
Chair McCoy, of course.
Thank you. We will now move on to the approval of the minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes of October 18th, 2021 and October 25th, 2021?
No changes to the minutes have been received.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes. Commissioner Parks?
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dolan. Secretary, please conduct a roll call vote.
Chair Dolan,
Yes.
Commissioner Vang, Commissioner Oputa,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Cummings, Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza,
Yes.
Commissioner Parks,
Yes.
and Chair McCoy.
Yes. We will now move on to subcommittee reports. This item is a discussion item for the commission, and no public comments will be taken related to this item. Does the Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to the commission?
Chair McCoy, this is Commissioner Parks. I'll just provide a couple of quick comments. We had a meeting scheduled today, but unfortunately it had to be canceled. So we received a quick update from Lilia Chavez by email. And basically that is just to say that the RFP has gone out, and I believe all commissioners should have received that from city staff last week. So we encourage you to send that out to anyone in your network that might be interested in submitting a proposal. And we are just waiting for those proposals to come in. The review committee, it looks like we'll be scheduling a meeting that will happen in the next couple of days, and the meeting to review proposals will be held later this month. And that is our update for now.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Does the Highest Needs Neighborhood Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to this commission? I can go ahead and provide that. We have no update at this time. Does the Parks Master Plan Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to this commission?
We have no update at this time.
Thank you. We will now move on to member reports and comments. As a reminder, this is a time for commission members to report anything they feel important for the public or commission to know, but is not a time for a discussion. Commissioner Barraza, do you have any reports or comments?
Yes, Madam Chair. I wanted to express my concern that when the recommendation by this commission was presented to the City Council at the last council meeting, that there was no presentation by a chair. I'm sure that there's probably a good reason for that, but I wanted to point out that when a commission makes a recommendation and we agree that there will be a representation by this commission, I really hope that it happens. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you for that comment. After I go through all the other commissioners for their reports and comments, then I will provide an update on the City Council meeting. Commissioner Oputa, do you have any reports or comments?
I do have a comment and a request. I have noticed that oftentimes when the community is making comments, they often have a question. A question is posed to the commission. It may be one that we can answer or that staff can answer, and it often goes unanswered. I would like to request that we put that as an agenda item for our next meeting to discuss that issue, is so that it can be clear for me at least Are we not going to respond? Or are we going to try each time to respond when a member of the community asks us a specific question?
I think I can actually give you just a little information on that. You are allowed, or city staff is allowed to provide a brief comment or response. However, if providing an extensive response would take us beyond the scope of the item, we would be in a Brown Act violation issue. And so if we wanted more information about a specific item, it would have to be agendized for the next agenda.
That helps me a little bit. I would like us to be really clear then on our process, because it always makes me feel, as we say in my community, some kind of way, when our community members have asked a question and we just move on. It feels really disrespectful to me. So I'd like us to talk about process and be very clear on that if we can. But that's helpful, Christy. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Singh, do you have any reports or comments?
Yeah, actually, now I do, now that Dr. Kuda brought that up. It's a really good point. I want to say that when we were discussing.
It's a lot of feedback coming from where you're at, Commissioner Singh.
Okay, it's okay, never mind.
It's okay. No, I was just wanted you to know that.
Yeah, I'm in a public location right now, so I will make my comment later. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Dolan, do you have any reports or comments?
Just one brief comment. I note with some interest and wanted to just congratulate Aaron Aguirre for his new position as Parks Commissioner, and I wanted to thank TJ Miller for her work in that same role. And I think we're all in good hands, so just wanted to comment on that.
Thank you for that. And a big congratulations to Aaron on that. Looking forward, I know I speak for the rest of the commissioners. We're looking forward to working with you and getting started on this hard work that we're tasked with. So congratulations.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Commissioner Miller, do you have any reports or comments?
None at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Parks, do you have any reports or comments?
Thanks, Chair McCoy. Just a quick comment. I just wanted to acknowledge and thank our city staff for the excellent work that happened on the Lewis S. Eaton Trail last week. I believe it was Tuesday. The mowing and cleaning up of the area that many of us call the corkscrew is fantastic, and it feels much safer. It improved the visibility. So just wanted to give you all a shout out for making that happen and show my appreciation. Thanks.
Thank you. Am I forgetting any other commissioners in the chambers? I cannot see them.
It's just me in the chambers tonight. Thanks, Chair McCoy.
Thank you. Okay, so I would like to give a report and a comment. I was asked by you all to attend the city council meeting to provide our recommendations. At that time, I was scheduled from a training from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., but I did play double duty. So I was logged on to city council meeting via Zoom, and I did take extensive notes. When our item was first brought up to the council, Councilmember Bradfield motioned to approve it, and Kabasi seconded. That way, and then before all that, they had a discussion. They wanted to see the presentation. Our recommendations were read out loud. Not Vice President, but President Chavez was very uncomfortable with our recommendations. He felt like we were trying to direct council where to spend the funds and where to pull them from. And we are just a recommendation body, so the council has the final say. So there was a hesitation from Councilmember Maxwell supporting this because he wanted to wait until the highest needs neighborhood assessment was presented by WRT. But all council members did approve this moving forward, and they did let us know that we're just a recommendation body and that the council has the final say so. So I just wanted to give that report out to you guys to let you guys know that I did attend, even though I had to attend via Zoom, because I had a scheduled training that I could not miss that day. So I did attend, and I see that you're ready to ask a question, Commissioner Barraza, so go right ahead.
Yeah, the point is that whether a presentation is actually made by the chair before the council, I do agree that Mr. Aguirre presented the recommendations, but I think it's a matter of protocol. If we agree and decide that there's going to be a presentation by the chair.
So I had a choice to attend in person or attend Zoom. So I attended Zoom, and after I heard the conversation, no matter if I made a presentation or not, the city council's mind was already made up. So I allowed them with their recommendations. They heard our concerns, they understood where we were coming from, but at the end of the day, they motioned to approve both items.
I respectfully disagree with you, Madam Chair, but that's fine with me.
Okay, thank you. Also, I also like to ask that if any commissioners.
And
Go ahead.
Commissioner,
Go ahead. Go ahead to who was speaking. Was it Francine?
No, I was
Okay.
not.
Was it someone was speaking? And I couldn't see who it was.
I think it might have been me, Ms. McCoy.
Okay.
This is Christy Costa, but my computer's coming in and out, so that's why I'm also on the phone, just in case. But I just wanted to clarify that the bylaws adopted by this commission allow for the chair to attend a presentation of the recommendations, but the recommendations are ultimately provided to City Council by city staff or the city manager's office. And any presentations regarding funding and spending would be done by city staff.
Thank you for that clarification, Christy. Also, I wanted to bring up that if any commissioners are requesting any documents, could they please come to me first? So then we can send it off to City Council so we can all receive those documents and we can all be on the same page of who's requesting what or who's asking questions, so we can be able to just have those documents. I think when we're requesting documents, we all should receive them, not just one commissioner. And I think that's just only right for us to be able to have any documents that are being requested by any commissioner, that they're shared out through the commission. I see Commissioner Bang had her hand up.
I just wanted to note that I was here today. I'm sorry, I ran a little late. Thank you, Brianna, for getting me in. Thanks.
Thank you for letting us know that. So those are all the reports and comments. Commissioner Vang, did you have a report or comment?
I have no report for the cultural arts. I just got an email from Lilia earlier this morning. She was not able to meet with us. In the next few days, she's going to be working with her staff to, give us more information on the culture and art consultation. How did how many people apply or how many organizations applied? We did not meet today, so hopefully we'll hear from her soon. And then at the next meeting, we hope to provide more scope. But Commissioner Parks and Commissioner Miller will be with me on the panel when we're doing the interview for the consultant, the potential consultant. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Commissioner Parks did give us an update on the Cultural Arts Commission, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
We will now move on to the City Administration and Park staff reports and comments. Does anyone from the administration have any reports or comments for the commission?
I do, Ms.
Yes.
McCoy. Of course, we wanted to congratulate Aaron Aguirre. He's, of course, been elevated to the Parks Director, and he brings with him many, many years of experience, not only in parks, but in public works. And so I think Parks is in good hands. And for those that don't know, it was just recently announced, Aldi Ramirez, who has been helping you with your subcommittees as well as the Measure P issues, she has been selected as the Assistant Director to take Aaron's place. So we'll have both of the Assistant Director and the Director are on today, and you have a full crew, a lot of experience going forward. So thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations, Aldi.
Thank you.
And Commissioner McCoy, I just wanted to add to Francine's comment. I'm excited for this new role and working with each and every one of you. I appreciate Vice Chair Dolan reaching out, as well as many others with their support and their confidence. And I too am happy to have Aldi as our Assistant Director. I've had the opportunity to work for the last couple of years, and you guys are in good hands with Aldi, and she will continue working with you guys closely as well as myself. So be prepared to see she as well as myself here on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis. So we're happy and look forward to working with you guys.
Thank you. Does anyone from the park staff have any reports or comments for the commission?
Go ahead, Aaron.
No, that's what I wanted to report. And Aldi, I'm not sure if you have anything to report on your end.
Nothing other than I wanted to thank you for the congratulations, and I'm glad that I've already been working with all of you, but I'm excited to continue working with you and all the great work ahead of us.
Thank you. We will now move on to unscheduled and scheduled communication. Would any member of the public like to speak on any issue within the jurisdiction of the commission? You have 3 minutes.
And we do have a few attendees. Don't see any hands at the moment. Would any of the attendees like to address the commission? You can raise your hand now. All right, we have Stacy Harrison. And Stacy, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hello.
Hey, Stacy, are you available to? There you go.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. I was invited to join the meeting in regards to some issues that's been going on at the parks with the lighting situation, where the kids that participate in football and other activities, the lights have not been coming on at an adequate time for practice and things like that. So I'd just like to know what are the plans for the parks and the committee to address these issues.
Christy, I can speak to that if that's okay.
Yeah, just on a high level basis.
Right. So currently our lights that are controlled by what we call a must-go lighting system, they come on they come on around 4:20. So it's whatever the National Weather shows as their sunset time, our lights will trigger on. Some of our older parks that do not have this technology are being reverted back to the current schedule. So currently our scheduled lights will turn on around 4:20, and then without a reservation, they'll turn off at 8:30. So that's our Monday through Sunday schedule. If there is a reservation at any given park, then obviously the lights will stay on longer, but without a reservation, lights will turn off at 8:30 p.m.
Thank you for that, Aaron. Is there anyone else in the public who would like to make a comment?
If there's anyone else in the attendees room that would like to speak to the commission, please raise your hand. And no, it looks like we do not have any other speakers at this time.
Thank you. We will now move on to workshops. Workshops are for informational purposes only, and we will not be taking public comment regarding any workshop. Item 10A, ID number 21860, workshop, overview of the city annual budget process, parks budget process, and the parks role, budget and parks. Will staff please begin the workshop?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Henry Fierro. I'm the budget manager. I will be providing you an overview of, in essence, our upcoming FY 2023 budget process. And again, this is citywide. In the following schedules, and I'm hoping we can get those up on screen, what I hope to provide you is an understanding of what are our key processes as we develop the city's budget. And with that, the timeline really starts this month in November. And we will work towards building a budget, again, for FY 2023, all the way through June 30th. And that is June 30th of 2022. So if you can keep in mind that when I'm speaking of fiscal year 2023, that encompasses a budget that will start July 1st of 2022. And again, it ends June 30th of 2023. So what I'm going to do is by month, just highlight what are key processes that will be taking place. So for example, this month in November, we traditionally start with building, developing in this case again, a 2023 fiscal year budget with our internal service providers. These departments or units encompass our information service department. They provide, if you will, the technology services, whether it's providing departments laptops, desktops, be it cell phones, desk phones, as well as the software side as applications, network accessibility, and so forth. In addition to the internal service department, we also have fleet services unit. This group then oversees, manages the city's, if you will, vehicles in terms of acquisition, leases, maintaining the various vehicles, along with providing fuel. Another entity within the city is our facilities group. They traditionally, if you will, are our property management team overseeing city facilities, as well as shepherding major projects. And then finally, we also have another internal service provider that's known as our Central Printing and Mail Center. They do a lot of the publication of various literature documents, such as the agenda or advertising needs for a given department, along with coordinating our mail distribution. So again, that's starting this month. We're asking these various, again, internal service providers that they start considering what are they going to need for the next fiscal year, again, 2023. Because what can happen is they may have contractual obligation increases, such as leases or maintenance contracts, that are scheduled to go up in cost. So we want to make sure we can capture those anticipated increases. They may need equipment replacement. They may have equipment that has completed their life cycle. And so it's time to replace the various equipment. And then finally, they may need possibly new positions in order to either maintain the current service level or possibly enhance. So that's what's taking place this month. Again, the internal service department units are working to determine those various needs of resources. In December, we will then review, and when I say we, it will be a budget review meeting with the internal service provided, the budget office, the city manager, and the assistant city manager. We will go over through their requested additional resources, go through a Q&A, try to understand the justification behind these additional requests. And then towards the end of the month of December, look towards the city manager to formalize what requests can continue through the budget process. So then that takes us into the new calendar year, starting with January 2022. And one of the big processes that occurs is we want to take a look, where do we anticipate to end our current fiscal year, which is fiscal year 2022. We complete what's called a mid-year operating revenue and expenditure estimate. And they do that by fund, which is, in my mind, like a checkbook. It could be the general fund, it could be a special revenue, it could be the enterprise. But we're looking to say, where do you think, department, where do you think you're going to end this current fiscal year. So by the end of January, all of the departments will be providing the mid-year, again, revenue and expenditure estimates. Then the budget office will start reviewing their submissions. We'll again go through Q&A, try to understand what has been submitted, and then give us a sense of where do they, as a department, feel they're going to land their revenue and expenditures. So then when we move into February, the budget office will do a mid-year review. We should complete that by the beginning of the month. We will then, as an office, we are working on finalizing, and this is the first term you're going to hear of the budget classification. We're finalizing a base budget for fiscal year 2023. So now we kind of have two independent processes. Again, one is finalizing a mid-year review for fiscal year 22. But in tandem, there's another process where we're building that 2023 budget. And in February, we're finalizing what's called a base budget. It is a budget for 23, basically to maintain a department's current service level activity. So in the month of February as well, there will be a meeting with the mayor and the city manager's office to go over those two processes. Again, the mid-year submission and the building of a base budget. Once I get formal approval by the mayor and the city manager, we then look to then open, if you will, the next phase of the budget. So again, we're starting with the base. At the end of February, we'll be giving departments direction to then say, okay, now let us know what you believe you're going to need as additional resources. Similar to the internal service units. In this case, it's all city departments. So the departments are then, at, again, end of February, they're going to start developing their request budget, again, additional resources related to their operating and capital activity. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. So now we're rolling into the month of March. Departments will need to submit, and this is critical, they need to submit now their 2023, their operating capital request budget. And I really stress this needs to, deliverable has to be met at the beginning of March, because what then happens is my office will again do a review of their requests, go through a Q&A with the departments, and then we're lining up budget review meetings of the request submissions with the mayor, the city manager, and respective departments. And we'll go through a week's worth, possibly two, of these review meetings. And once we go through these budget review meetings, that will complete the month of March. Then we move into April. And then in the month of April, that's when the mayor and the city manager will establish final decisions on which requests were approved. And that typically occurs between the mid to end of the month of April. So these timelines, and I have to stress, are very rigid. They have to stay on course so that we can get to the review meetings at the end of March and get final decisions by the mayor and the city manager by mid to end of April. So once we have approval by the mayor and the city manager of the requests that were submitted, that then gets layered on top of the department's base budget. And by this layer effect, what then happens is from a base budget to a request budget, now with the approved requests, it becomes the mayor's FY 2023 proposed budget. If we can go on to the next slide, please. Now we roll into the month of May. So once decisions have been made, again, by the mayor, city manager, we now, as my budget, the office, it then goes into full production mode to produce the mayor's proposed budget. We will be striving to get that completed so that by the end of May, the mayor will hold a press conference announcing the publication of the proposed budget. And then shortly thereafter, a day or two, the mayor then will announce officially to City Council the proposed budget. From that, when we now are moving into June, that's when budget hearings will be scheduled and held for presentations by the department, as well as Q&A between, again, City Council, departments, and the administration. Now, some key activities that will occur during these budget hearings is council will most likely create two types of lists. One list is a list of directions for additional information, and the other list is a list of motions. Now, these motions that are created can either add, they can delete, or they can shift budget appropriations for a department. So once that list is established, then council will set a date to vote on that list of motions. And those motions that receive approval will then create another layering effect. So again, we had a base, request, proposed budget. Now with the approved list of motions, that once those motions list is approved, now that gets layered, and then that becomes from a proposed budget to now an adopted budget. And that has to be established by June 30th. So I just again wanted to give you an overview of how the budget is changing from November to June, from be it a base budget to finalizing by June 30th to an adopted budget. So with that, completes my overview of the anticipated budget process. And again, my goal was to try to give you key points of what is done in a given month, and again, how the budget changes over that period of time. So again, that completes my presentation, and I believe the next slide is for the Parks Department to present.
So the Parks Department goes through a very similar process internally. We'll begin our internal budget process in January, where the divisions and the managers for each of the sections submit their budget for base programming at current service levels. So basically providing the same level of service that we're providing now. Also in January, the department divisions and managers will submit their budget requests for any new requests, any expansion of current services or new programs. At the same time, the capital projects are reviewed. The project managers review each of our capital projects to see which projects will complete in the current fiscal year and which ones will carry over to the new year. This is also a time to identify new projects. We've also identified some timing for any potential presentations to the commission, a high-level overview of the current budget and any questions that you may have regarding the budget process. In February, we'll review all the submissions from the divisions and make our priority rankings. In March, we'll do a final revenue projection and then our submissions into the budget system for our capital and operating. And then we'll follow the city's budget schedule as identified in previous slides. And the next slide is the commission's role.
Thank you, Dari. Thank you, Henry. This is the last slide of the presentation, and this slide really focuses on what is the commission's role as it pertains to our annual budgeting process. So we laid the foundation with Henry's part of the presentation demonstrating what the city goes through as they build their budget every year. And then Dari touched on, specifically how does that impact parks and the tasks that we need to do in order to complete our budget. And so I want to wrap that up by just touching on your role as a commission. And I pulled the language from the ordinance so that we could all be looking at the same thing. So this is called out in section 7-1509 regarding the fiscal oversight and budget accountability section. And you'll see there's two sections, section 1 and then section 2. So the first one is regarding conducting hearings and receiving public input on allocations related to this ordinance, updates to the Parks Master Plan and Cultural Arts Plan, and then the annual Parks Department budget and capital improvement plans, and then make recommendations to the City Council. So specifically pertaining to number 1, this is a task that you all are going to do while the mayor is building the FY23 budget. And by the mayor, I mean the administration, the departments, etc. We are all one. And during December and January, so quickly approaching here, you guys will be conducting community hearings, outreach, engagement. When I say community hearings, that's specifically referencing the language right there in the ordinance. And then when I'm saying outreach and engagement, I'm referencing kind of the online survey and some of the other engagement tools that are going to be used that you're going to hear about tonight in the second workshop that's following this. So that'll give you an outline of what that outreach and engagement looks like. So then once you do that in February 2022, so in a couple months, the commission will make their recommendations to City Council. This is recommendations regarding the general fund allocations as well as the Measure P allocations that will go in the budget. So these can be, I wanted to provide a few examples of what those recommendations might look like. So for example, hypothetically, a recommendation could be, to match last year's general fund, or to put more general fund towards, the hiring of park staff or homelessness, etc. And then once you make these recommendations, they're going to go to the City Council, and that will be through a tray memo. That will also inform the Parks Department of what your recommendations are, so we can take that into consideration as we also are building our budget. And then we're getting down to the second, number 2. This is the second part of the ordinance that pertains to this. It is reviewing city staff recommendations for budget allocations related to this ordinance to ensure consistency with the ordinance and expenditure plan, make recommendations to the City Council for adoption of expenditures in connection with the annual budget process and any amendments thereto. So regarding this, you will continue to do community outreach and hearings and engagement from March to May. So you will have already made your recommendations. You'll be able to go back out to the community, receive further input. And then in May and June, once the mayor releases his budget, you'll be able to make additional recommendations only as it relates to Measure P. So your first set of recommendations will be general fund and Measure P, and your second set of recommendations will only be as it pertains to Measure P. This is also an opportunity for the recommendations to get more detailed if you wish, or they could remain high level as I previously mentioned. And then these recommendations will go to council during the time when we're doing budget hearings, more specifically when Parks is going through their budget hearing. So that kind of wraps it up in a nutshell. The budget process, what the Parks Department goes through, and then your role as a commission as it relates to the building of the budget. And that is the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Struggling with my mute button here. Thank you for that presentation. Does any commissioners have any questions in regards to this presentation?
Chair McCoy, I have a question
Yes.
for Aldi. Would you mind putting that last slide up? I got a little lost when you were talking about the hearings and the recommendations and March to May and May to June. You indicated there that it was only related to Measure P. what is the difference in the first hearings and recommendations? I'm hearing that those two are different.
So not specifically related to the hearings, but related to your recommendations. And I will lean on Christy from the city attorney's office to interpret the ordinance for us. But the first set of recommendations will be as it relates to the general fund allocations and Measure P. And then once we take those into consideration, build our budget, and then when the mayor announces his budget, you all will be able to weigh in again regarding the Measure P allocations.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. That was helpful.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Barraza.
the hearings that are held at various points, like starting December 2021, and then we also have another hearing March, May 2022. Can the public, I'm assuming the public can do whatever they want, can they discuss the issues or preference or request for funding under Measure P under any of those two hearings? Or is there a discussion on Measure P limited to the March, May 2022 public hearing?
Yeah, great question. I can answer that. So members of the public will be able to, as you're calling it, express interest or provide, a presentation during both the December to January timeframe as well as the March to May timeframe. We will agendacize the hearings so that we're complying with the Brown Act, and so that folks in the public know what we're talking about, and members of the public can come and speak during that time. I do want to mention it, and WRT is going to present in the next presentation, but we're really wanting to remember as we're going through these hearings, outreach and engagement, to utilize the tools that we have before us. So, we have the Parks Master Plan, and we have, current projects that are in the pipeline. We'll have our highest needs definition adopted prior to January. And we want to use these tools as we're taking in this community input to be able to put the recommendations together. So just wanted to note that. I think it's really important, and I keep being reminding myself that we have all of these tools in front of us. So as we're hearing this community input, it's going to be great because we're going to be able to say, yep, that's in the highest needs. Yep, that's in the Parks Master Plan, to be able to lay out some really good recommendations.
And in the city staff recommendations, is it possible that the outcome of having those hearings, that the commission may either remove or add a new project to the list of projects?
So are you talking about during the March and May timeframe?
At either time. Well, yeah, when we see the list of projects recommended by staff, that will probably be on the March, May hearing, I would think, right?
Right, and that will be the mayor's budget. So the mayor will come out with his budget around that time, and that is what will be released to the public as well as to city council. That is what you will be seeing. So can you make recommendations that are different? Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other questions on this item before we move on?
Chair McCoy, this is Commissioner Parks. I have just hopefully a quick question, and I don't know if this is for Aldi or for Henry. When I'm looking at the commission's role slide and the February 2022 that we would be making recommendations to the city council, I'd like to better understand what the city council's role in the budget process is at that time. Because when we look back at the processes by month, it looks like there wouldn't be a lot of numbers ready to look at yet. So I'm just trying to understand how our recommendations fit into what the council would be working on or seeing in February.
Yeah, great question, Commissioner. So per the ordinance, the recommendations need to go to city council, and we want to make sure that we're following the intent of the ordinance. So it will be informing them of what you all have been working on and the input that you've been taking. and we'll give them a first look at, hey, here's the recommendations as they relate to the general fund and the Measure P. But more importantly, they're going to inform us as well. So us meaning the mayor, the administration, and staff, we're going to take in your input as we're building our budget as well. So you mentioned something really important, which is there might not be a lot of numbers to look at. And that's completely true, right? We're going through the budget build alongside of you. So it's important to think high level as well. What is it that you see money going towards? Do you see, do you feel like a certain amenity in Southeast Fresno is important? Do you feel like Parks needs additional staff, right? So I think it's important for this first round of recommendations not to get caught up in spending every dollar that's available and more focusing on where should the money be going in terms of the pie, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Aldi. That's very helpful.
All right, do we have any more questions on this item from the commissioners? All right, we will now move on to the next workshop. Item 10B, ID number 21-858, workshop overview of the public input process and the Parks role, Parks and WRT. Will staff please begin the workshop?
Aldi, do you want me to just jump in?
Yeah, that would be great, Peter.
Okay. Sorry.
You're good.
I was waiting for an intro and
Actually, you know what? It's good. I forget that the commission's very familiar with you, but members of the public may not be. So this is the second workshop of tonight, and our WRT and team will be presenting. This is related to the implementation of Measure P, and more specifically, the outreach and engagement that was just referenced in the previous presentation. So the team is going to take us through what that looks like the end of this year and into next year.
Great, thank you. Can everyone see my screen? I believe it's sharing.
Got it.
Yeah, I think these two presentations are really well linked. I appreciate the thought that staff put into connecting these two workshops. We're going to start with just a little refresh on Measure P and community engagement, which is really going to be a refresh because you hit some of this material just now. And then go in a little bit more detail into what we're proposing as elements of the community engagement program to support the Measure P implementation process just during the next few months. And we look forward to hearing your feedback on that. What is Measure P? I think we all know, but it has these five baskets of funding that we need to continue to just be aware of as we think about what the budget and what the capital and operations budget implications of that are. That we're talking about improving and maintaining existing parks. We're talking about new parks and recreation facilities. We're also talking about programs, access to arts and culture, safe walking and biking trails, street beautification, and the River Parkway. Most of what we've been talking about and will continue to talk about as your consultants on this process will be parks, the park side of things, but we need to just remember that there are these other elements as well. The schedule graphic is updated since we've last showed this. And so hopefully you're beginning to be a little bit familiar, but it also is a bit daunting. So I'm going to walk through just the kind of key points here as they relate to community engagement. I think the best place to start is the big green band, which is showing sort of the bigger chunks of activity of our work together as we move toward that June 2022 city budget deadline. So during the fall, which is this section here, we focused first on defining highest need neighborhoods because that was a critical path item to get adopted before the end of the year. And now, after this meeting, we're going to start pivoting to park prioritization. And that's going to be a framework for us to understand how to prioritize parks for Measure P funding. Then as we get into the winter, we're going to start pivoting to, having identified what those priority parks are, we're going to start pivoting to what are the projects that should be taking place in those parks so that we can start building out a city capital improvement plan, including what goes in the budget for this year, but also looking potentially a little bit longer term. There are a few other components here that are listed in that green band, but for tonight, I think those are the key pieces. And then you can see in the spring, the city budget development process, which we will continue to have a role in. We meaning the commission, but also our team in support of your work. The next part of this diagram I want to call attention to is this series of green icons with the word PRAC below it. That's your meetings. And right now we are here, middle of November. And you can see that we are conducting and will continue to be conducting meetings and hearings with you as we develop the projects related to Measure P. The extra circle here indicates a meeting where you've taken a formal vote. So in this case, on November 1st, you took a formal vote on the highest need neighborhoods. The next one of those that we anticipate will take place sometime in early February and would be making your recommendation with regard to the city budget. And that's that presentation that we just went through. So you can imagine that trying to sort of overlay that budget process that Henry and Dari and Aldi described into this diagram, that ends, or that includes, a commission role making a recommendation in regards to the department budget at this point in February. And then again, weighing in on the draft city budget sometime in probably late May. And then finally, I'm working from bottom to top here, moving to the community engagement band, which is this blue band here at the top. And here I want to call attention to sort of two periods of community engagement that we're proposing. The first period is community-wide, and it basically lines up with this first part of the process where we're first identifying what the highest need neighborhoods are, and then we're trying to identify what are the park priorities at a citywide level. And then the next phase of community engagement is neighborhood specific. And this is where we're working on the ground to think about specific parks improvements with specific communities. And Sheila will talk a little bit more about the components of that effort. So why community engagement? Again, this is an overlap with the presentation that we just got, but the ordinance itself defines a commission role in helping the city through the budget process. So you can see in bold where we've already been through this highest needs neighborhoods definition, but that calls for a public process. It doesn't define what that public process has to be, but it calls for it, and we've done that together. The second point here is that there is a role in conducting public hearings and receiving public input related to the budget and capital improvement plan. So in addition to sort of the formal ordinance-based reasons for doing engagement, we simply need engagement to make good decisions about what to prioritize, what parks to prioritize, what recreation amenities people in Fresno see as most important right now. And then later, as we get into that neighborhood specific part of the process, we need specific neighborhood input on what kinds of improvements should be made at specific parks. Or if it's a new park we're talking about, what should be the recreation components and characteristics of that new park. The smaller circles in this diagram, we're very diagram heavy in this presentation, so bear with us and hopefully it's helpful. The smaller circles here are referring to inputs into this park prioritization process that are coming from the existing parks master plan. This green circle refers to the pipeline projects that have already been identified and are kind of in the pipeline. But it's this orange color that is most important for our conversation tonight. And that is that community priorities are an element of what we need to take into consideration as we prioritize parks. And then they are an element again when we are thinking about how to specify what should go into parks and gets funded by Measure P. So essentially, we recognize that these community priorities and this community engagement work that helps us understand what those priorities are is a part of how we make determinations for how to use this Measure P money. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Sheila, who's our partner, and I think you've all met Sheila, but you'll see her again in a moment, to talk more specifically about what we are anticipating doing together with outreach and engagement.
Thank you, Peter. You all heard from Peter that why the community engagement and how the community engagement is going to be part of a kind of a bigger process of what Measure P is going to be accomplishing. But right now, we're just going to go through some more focused discussion of what the community engagement is going to be and how it's going to be rolling out, and how we're going to basically work with the community and work with the commission and stakeholders to make sure we reach out to the broader community and the neighborhoods around the priority parks and make sure the feedback is incorporated. So as this is like a simple diagram to show the outline of the community engagement. What is really important here, we're gonna go through some more details of the of what is on this diagram on the slides that are going to come. But what I want to bring to your attention is that there's basically this community engagement is parallel to how Measure P and the budget identification is going to move forward and progress. So there's a phase 1, which we're basically right in the middle of it right now, and then phase 2. And phase 1 is sort of started in October and November, December, covering highest need neighborhood, priority parks, general information, and outreach to the community. And then phase 2 that is going to be more specifically focused on those priority parks that are going to be identified by December. So it is important to know that when they share a lot of same outreach tools, but then we're kind of going to bring in more tools into our outreach. We're more like online right now, virtual, but with phase 2, we're focused on parks. We know what those parks are. We're going to identify those neighborhoods and stakeholders and be more like a focus in person, and working with the community members on a more refined details about each park. Next one, Peter. So we're just going to go through some information, some general ideas of what tools we're going to use and how these engagements are going to roll out. There's going to be, we have been implementing, using and utilizing it, social media, e-blast. We're going to continue on doing that. City soon, if not right now, has the Measure P website. I think it's actually up right now. And then that website is going to be this one place to go, like a visitor center. Everything is going to be there, from agenda, meeting notices, registration links, information about Measure P, and flyers. So that we're just going to try to consolidate everything into one spot, one web page on the city of Fresno that people will have easy access. Translation is key. We want to make sure we incorporate Spanish, Hmong, Punjabi translation, interpretation, and language barrier wouldn't stop anybody from participating with Measure P process. Next one, please. And when we move to phase 2, and we have our list of priority parks, we know where they are, we know the neighborhoods, depending on how they're going to be, related to different neighborhoods or to one neighborhood, we're gonna get on the ground, like basically boots on the ground, working with community advocacy groups, our partners on this outreach, and go do door to door, go to the community events, get flyers to the people, to residents, and distribute survey. So make sure that we're just right in the community, and it's not going to be just all online. And then these community partners are going to be helping us with organizing workshops and pop-ups and help us to understand the community, because those are the community advocacy group partners are the people, are the organizations that they know the neighborhoods and communities better, and we rely on their knowledge and insights to make sure we have an effective Did we lose Peter?
We
Can
lost you there for a minute, Sheila. Maybe just back up.
Oh, sorry, it was me then.
Yeah, back up like 20 seconds.
Okay, so I don't know where you guys didn't hear me, but on the distribution, we're going to be working on community advocacy groups for flyer distribution, door to door, and organizing workshops and pop-ups, and rely on their knowledge of the community to understand what tools works better for each community. For example, we had some projects, like we had one project in particular that we were relying on emails and social media posts for our engagement, and then we realized that
And she froze again.
reorganizing and utilizing the
Sheila, we lost you again. We realized.
I'm sorry. Maybe can I take a 5-second break and move my location? Maybe I'm not getting good.
Seems to be working again.
Is working.
You're okay,
Okay.
Sheila.
Let's go to the next slide. Anyway, sorry for that.
You did
So-
good.
So just
Sheila, I would like you to back up to what you were saying about the e-blast, etc. And then you said, and then we realized, and that's when it.
Yeah, we were
froze.
using like our usual engagement, like emailing and posting on the websites and Zoom meetings. And then on one of our work with like side tools, basically, we realized one of the community members is on Facebook stream and recording and streaming our walk tour. And people were actually responding and email and posting. And that's what we realized, that this particular community is really engaged via Facebook and Facebook streaming. So we definitely, we decided to incorporate that and post every Zoom meeting we had, streamline it on the Facebook. So the idea is that to get to know the community and understand what works for them better. All right. So, we had our engagement already via virtual public workshops, as Peter showed them on the diagram. They're going to continue on, and commission meetings and hearings are going to be a very important tool. Will continue to be a very important tool for our engagement going forward. Survey is one of the very important engagement tools that we're going to be definitely capitalizing on that. There is going to be a survey very soon. It's under review that we're going to launch it. And for this phase 1 of the engagement, it's going to help us to basically with the park prioritization. And then once we move to phase 2 and have all these individual parks, like on the priority parks that we need to work, we're going to update the survey to fit each park, and the questions are going to be appropriate for that. From the assessment, we want to understand and get inputs from. We want to do and get inputs from the community. And again, online and hard copies at events or pop-ups is going to be the ways we're going to get the survey to the hand of the community and get inputs back. All right, next one. Pop-ups are really important, and again, flexibility and understanding how people like to be engaged. They will happen when there is there's an event at the park, or maybe a busy day at the park. And basically very simple, just a table, posters, maybe a survey, and then information, and just be there to answer questions. And then it happens like how you see at the image at the left side, kids are around and they like to be, participating, we had papers for them to draw, and usually we are on all our engagements, especially with the parks, because kids are the major user, I mean, the main users of the park. We get really, really good feedback and insightful, productive comments that that can be directly, incorporated to our planning and design. And next one. And then community engagement at the pop-ups. Basically, the last slide, we utilize the pop-ups to advertise for the community workshops, and then community workshops are most likely happening at the parks. Depending on how each park may present its, present the need of the engagement and the community, the walk tour, youth involvement, working with the schools, and then basically having this site assessment workshop with the community, understand what is missing in the park, what do they see to happen, and kind of directly helping us with the improvement prioritization for that individual park. And then the next one, Peter, another diagram. We try to break the diagram with a few nice images. So, but again, back to the diagrams. This is basically show the focus of this diagram is on the timeline, and on the right side you see all the dates. Phase 1 again. It's starting in October to December. We had many meetings, hearings, and surveys going to be up. Highest need neighborhood is going to be finalized, and then park priority list is going to be ready for us to move to phase 2, which is again focus on those parks. And as you see, it's like January to February, 2 very intense months. Call for action for our partners, city staff and administration, council members, park commission, Measure P commission, and the stakeholders to help us, get the word out, get the community to the meetings. It's going to happen very quick, and we need the community to be part of it. And we count on our partners to help us with that. So I guess that was it, Peter. Sorry for the breakups.
So that's it, and I think we're here to hear from you now, and hear your comments and thoughts on this engagement approach for Measure P.
Thank you for that presentation, WRT. Nice presentation. Does the commissioners have any questions for WRT? All right, no questions. Any questions in the chamber? Commissioner Parks, do you have any questions?
Actually, I'm sorry, this is City Clerk Sturmer. We do have a couple of hands, Dr. Opuda and Leon Barraza, commissioners. Dr.
Opuda, please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for that presentation. It's very informative. I appreciate the variety of approaches to gather input from the community. I have 2 questions. One, and I heard some of this, I think, with you talking about at pop-up events, at community events at the park, that you will have hard copies of the survey. My concern is absolutely we get a far reach with an online survey, but there is a digital divide. And so how do we make sure that folks that don't have digital access are being served? So I just wanted, if you could talk a little bit about hard copy surveys. So that's my first question. And my second question, Sheila, with the timeline that you presented, and in general, is this an annual, yes, thank you. Is this an annual process? And if so, my question is for next year, I'm just looking at how so much of the outdoor community engagement is in the winter months, in the cold months, versus in the spring and summer when the parks are more active. Are we going to be able to shift this timeline up for the following year? So those are my two questions.
I will answer your first question and then take the second one because I think Peter will also have something to say about it. On the first one and the survey, we definitely share the same concern as yours, and that's why we want to make sure that we have both online and printed surveys specifically for the phase 2. For phase 1, we don't have any in-person engagement, and it's like the entire city of Fresno basically needs to get this survey, and I don't believe we can. We're not planning on having any. I'm sorry, can you hear me? Yeah, so we're not planning to have any in-person survey for phase 1. So for phase 1, it's going to be online, but those community advocacy groups, we're going to be working on bringing them on board as soon as we can. So with this survey distribution, online survey distribution, they can help us. So it's not just posted on one spot like City of Fresno website. But I want to give you a quick example, a project that we were working with Fresno BHC and Calwa. We had a survey out there on the website, on different websites, posting it on the Facebook, but we were not collecting the number of surveys we wanted. So we decided to basically show up at the event that was in the area and regarding the community, for the community. And in one event, we could actually pass our projected number that we wanted because community was there and it was just easy to go to them and get that, collect the surveys that we needed. I hope I answered that
Yeah,
question.
that you did. And if I could just add, and you may be already doing this, but I hope you don't mind me giving voice to it. Also, with the community organizations, seeking their support in bringing community members into these organizations that do have internet access for their community participants. So if folks don't have internet access at home, that they can come into another space and maybe a space that they're already familiar with, whether it's a park or a community center or a place of worship where they can do this survey for folks who do not have internet access.
That's a very good point, and we will take it and we'll use that recommendation for sure. On this timeline, I would just want to remind you that our timeline is kind of coordinated with the budget hearing timeline that the city staff just went through. So to make sure that we can incorporate community input into the budget that is going to go to the city council, January and February is the timeline that we have to do it. But I understand it's going to be cold, but hopefully we can just figure out the time, maybe a community center or a location that can be indoor if it is possible. We don't know about COVID, how restrictions are going to be, but that's basically our hands are tied. We can go beyond February. But Peter, do you want to add, or Aldi, do you guys want to? I see Aldi's hand up.
And before they do, I was actually doing it in reverse, not taking this further, but for next year, starting it earlier. That was the point I was making.
Yeah. Peter, are you okay if I handle that?
Please, yeah.
Okay, great. Great question, Dr. Apuda. And the answer is yes, absolutely. In regards to, doing this prior or, building into the seasons that are warmer. And I think it's important to shed light on the reason the schedule's like this for this year is because you all have been tasked with many, many things to do this first year, including the highest needs definition. So a lot of that has taken up your time and your energy. But going into next year, you technically can start the engagement for the following year right after the budget is passed. So you'll have a much longer stretch of community engagement opportunity.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Commissioner Barraza, you have a question?
Yes. What I'm kind of interested in getting a more clear picture, when you have all these surveys and it looks like you're having also some in-person events like the pop-up events and the neighborhood workshops, what do you count in terms of, as you try to determine the park priority list? What do you count? Do you count the number of people that attend events? Do you count the people that come before this commission and make presentations? Do you count the number of comments or the surveys that are performed? So what methodology do you use to arrive to the conclusion that a project is a higher priority than other projects?
Hey, WRT team, do you mind taking us back to the slide with the bubbles?
Yeah, I think that would be a good spot.
Yeah. And Peter, if you want to field that first, I'm happy to add if there's anything else, but I think this is a pretty good description of how we get there.
Sure, that's great. And Jose, this is going to be the primary subject of our next presentation to you in a couple of weeks. So we'll be able to handle this question in more detail then. But basically, I think what you've asked about first is how do we arrive at this set of priority parks? How do we prioritize the parks first? And what we're suggesting is that community priorities, which we receive through community input on the online survey and at commission meetings in this first phase of engagement, is one input into among several, which also should also be, which we also need to take into consideration because a lot of work has been done to identify park priorities already, right? The precise way that we weight community input alongside those other factors is something we still need to put a little bit more thought into and bring to you and workshop with you. But I think the simple answer is it is one of the factors that contribute to our understanding of priority parks.
For example, the Fresno Parks Master Plan, that's still in an evolution stage. Although I know a lot of it is already done, but is that going to be done on time for you to be able to use it?
Yeah, all of that analysis that was done for the Parks Master Plan, there's a lot of really valid and valuable analysis that I think we can use.
So when we reference the master plan, that we're referencing the 2018 master plan, at least in the present state, until the new one is updated. But that's really more mid next year. So in the interim, it's really the 2018 master plan, which is very comprehensive.
And then you'll actually have. Is it going to? Well, I'm trying to come up with or understand as more of an objective process, and that's why I was trying to find out about the methodology. But when you list all those, I mean, if you want to get a little bit scientific, I guess you could come out with any. It becomes very subjective. I guess that's my concern.
Yeah, we're trying to create a process that is really transparent and where we can see what all of these inputs are. And I think it'll be really good to walk through those together on our next call.
Yeah, I think to your point, Commissioner Barraza, is we're trying to develop a process that's transparent and not very subjective. Yeah. And so to actually track the from a number of different sources how a particular park is identified as important, how a particular program is identified as important, and to really track that, record that on a spreadsheet so that we're actually all able to kind of see the same information and begin to arrive at some pretty reasonable priorities for a park system, and something that's, I think hopefully pretty defensible and serves as a 1 to 5 year look ahead for some priorities.
Thank you for the questions, Commissioner Barraza. Is there any other commissioners who have questions for WRT? Commissioner Parks, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will now move on to the final workshop. Item 10C, ID number 21-861. Workshop, overview of the city master fee schedule, annual review process, and parks role in amendments to the parks master fee schedule. Will staff please begin the workshop?
Good evening, commissioners. This is an overview, a very high-level overview of our master fee schedule. The current master fee schedule reports fees for any services that we provide to our citizens. It's a list, citywide list of fees. Fees that do not recover the costs of providing the service results in shifting of funds. So one of the methodologies for fees is figuring out the total cost of a program and charging for those services. The city code of ordinance has the master fee resolution written as all fees, penalties, refunds, reimbursements, and charges of any kind collected by the city are to be specified in the master fee schedule. Some examples of parks fees includes the Riverside Golf Course green fees, fees related to neighborhood centers, parks, and playground facilities. Some of those fees would be reservations of gym or auditorium or kitchen facilities. Downtown mall fees, those would include any special event fees, like setting up a stage for a special event. Any general recreation fees, those would include entry into parks, picnic shelter reservations, swim lessons. We also have memorial auditorium rental rates. And those are theater rates that we charge for anybody that would like to rent stage time. We also have fees maintained under under contract agreements, such as USA BMX memberships and community garden plot fees. Amendments to the master fee schedule are usually done annually. It's a citywide annual review process, normally done in September. The reason for doing the annual reviews is to add any new fees for new programs or new operations being offered. It's also to remove any fees that are no longer used, or if there is a program that has been modified. It's also to update any language in the master fee schedule. So we update the fees to align the recovery for the cost of the programs. The commission's role is written in the city code of ordinance under the fiscal oversight and budget accountability. The commission shall have a primary authority on behalf of the city to review and make any recommendations to the mayor and the city council on fees related to parks, trails, and open spaces. So the amendment schedule for this year, parks would normally go through the citywide process beginning in September and being approved usually in December. However, this year we're going independent of the annual process, and we are expecting the review process between November and December for any master fee amendments. So basically reviewing our fees and finding which ones we need to update. The amendments will go to the commission for recommendations in December. The final recommendations would be towards the end of January. And then the amendments which go to the Fresno City Council for approval between the end of January and February. So that's just a brief overview of the calendar. We anticipate to come back to the commission with a more with the actual amendments in December.
Thank you for that presentation. Is there any questions in regards to this presentation? All right.
Chair McCoy, I'm sorry. Can I just have, I'm sorry. Just a really quick question. As city staff are looking at amending the fees, could you speak to like what considerations are being taken into account? And I ask this because I remember during our pool tour, the waiving of the fees for swim lessons was very meaningful, just as one example. So what are some of the things that city staff will be looking at as you look at amending the fees?
We will be looking at the cost of the program as well, the labor costs, any non-personnel costs, ID charges to run the program, as well as the revenue that the revenue generated from the current fees.
And would there be any consideration now that we have, Measure P and general fund dollars, of course, to look at? So I totally understand the goal of the fees covering the full cost of the program, but like park entrance fees typically don't, in my understanding. And as we're looking at, challenges of folks in our community, are we looking at making sure that fees do not prevent people from participating in the program if they can't afford to, for example? Are those sorts of things taken into account?
Yeah, I think the amendments that you're going to see here in the next few weeks are going to really refresh our master fee schedule. What we've done, we've gone through and we've actually looked at some of the line items. There's services we no longer perform that do not need to be a part of that master fee schedule. In addition to that, some of the field setups were refreshed with the new hourly rates of employees. So those are some of the kind of the updates you'll see to that. But as far as some of the other items you're talking about, I don't anticipate any adjustments to those, but we will have a few of the other ones with the explanation and kind of the consideration in the data to support those updates.
And actually, as you were describing that, and the previous speaker, and I apologize, I couldn't see your name, the previous person, perhaps what I'm thinking of is actually sort of separate from the fee schedule itself. Like we could make a recommendation that, a percentage of swimming lessons are free next year and so on. So maybe there's kind of two processes happening. There's like the fee, the fee schedule, and then there could be recommendations about waiving fees potentially.
And I can probably step in real quick for you. That would probably go with your recommendations to City Council in February for building of the next budget.
Okay, thank you.
All right, do we have any other questions in regards to the presentation? Vice Chair Dolan?
You're muted.
Of course I am. Daria, are parking fees in those recreation fees, or where do they fall?
Parks does not currently charge parking fees. We do have gate fees that go for the regional parks, but no parking fees.
I'm sorry, I know for a fact that we charge parking fees at Roding Park, for example, and I think we do the same at Woodward Park.
Correct. Our three regionals, Woodward, Roding, and the sports complex, have a vendor to capture the vehicles. But our other parks do not capture parking fees, just the 3 regionals.
Okay, but so will those parking fees be part of the consideration that we make recommendations on? Or is that a different, am I missing something there?
The parking fees are not being adjusted at this time, but they are a part of the master fee schedule for if you wanted to review those, they are there, but we are not taking any adjustments to council at this time, but they are there for your review.
Okay.
And then similar to what Christy used the example on the last question, you could do the same thing when you make your recommendations in February. You could make recommendations related to what you're referencing is the gate fee when you enter the park. They take that fee. Those you could make a recommendation in February.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Commissioner Barraza?
Yeah, just a quick question. There's an item that I kind of have an interest in, and that's what it's called park development fees. Those are used, normally paid by people that build homes for the funding of the construction of parks. And I heard somebody make a comment that because we now have Measure P, that we're not going to have those fees. So I would like to make sure we take a look at those fees at the right time when you guys come back. And I'm interested in be sure that there also we know what is that revenue being used for currently. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Commissioner Barraza, in response to that, the development fees are separate of the master fee schedule that we're talking about right now. The development fees fall up and underneath Scott Mosier, and he can chime in a little bit from a high level regarding that, but anything specific, as long as it pertains to the commission's role, we could come back with a presentation.
It would be helpful. It doesn't make sense, that the park development fees are not part of the park fees,
Right, different twist to it.
But it would be useful to know what happens to that revenue.
All right, do we have any other questions in regards to this presentation? All right, I will now adjourn the meeting at 7:08 p.m. Thank you guys for coming out and spending the evening with us. And commissioners, please enjoy the rest of your evenings with your families. Good night.
Thank you very
Good
much.
night.